Have you ever looked at a woman and wondered about her past? Not in a judgmental way, but in that quiet curiosity every man feels. You ask yourself, what kind of experiences has she had? What kind of choices has she made? Because let's be honest, her past shapes her present. It shapes how she sees men, how she approaches relationships, and how she values intimacy. Now here's the thing. Most women won't be open about this part of their life. They won't sit you down and say, "Yes, I've been with many men." Instead, they'll keep it hidden. But the truth always leaves traces, and if you know what to look for, you'll see the signs. In this video, we're going to talk about 7 hidden signs a woman has slept with a lot of men. And let me be clear right from the start, this isn't about shaming. This isn't about pointing fingers. This is about awareness. Because as a man, you need to understand the reality of who you're dealing with. You need to know what her past might mean for your future. And most importantly, you need to stay grounded, stoic, strong, and unshaken, no matter what you discover. So let's get into it. The first hidden sign is how she talks about men. A woman's language reveals more than she realizes. If she casually talks about men as if they're interchangeable, if she describes relationships in a detached, almost transactional way, it's a clue. For example, she might say things like, "Oh, all guys cheat," or "Men are only good for one thing." On the surface, it sounds like frustration, but beneath that, it often comes from repeated experiences. Experiences that leave patterns in her speech. Think about it. A woman who's only been with 1 or 2 men doesn't usually generalize about all men. Her sample size is too small. But a woman who's had multiple experiences, different men, different relationships, starts to see patterns, and those patterns creep into her language. I remember a story of a man named Samuel. He was dating a woman who, on the surface, seemed innocent. But as time went on, Samuel noticed how she talked. She constantly made sweeping statements about men. Men are liars. Men always disappear. Men only want one thing. At first, he brushed it off as bitterness. But then he realized these weren't random thoughts. They were reflections of a long history with men. Each statement was like a breadcrumb, leading him to the truth she never openly admitted. Now, does this mean every woman who makes a general statement about men has been with dozens of them? Not necessarily. But it is a sign worth paying attention to, because her words reveal her worldview. And that worldview is often shaped by experience. The second hidden sign is how she views commitment. This one is crucial. Women who have been with many men often develop a complicated relationship with commitment. On one hand, they might avoid it altogether. On the other hand, they might chase it desperately. Either extreme is a clue. Let's start with avoidance. Some women become so accustomed to short-term encounters that commitment feels foreign. When a man offers stability, she gets restless. She says things like, "I'm just not ready for anything serious," or "I like to keep my options open." She frames it as independence. But beneath that, it's often a reflection of habit. She's used to variety. She's used to novelty. The idea of one man for the long haul feels like a cage. Then there's the opposite. Desperation for commitment. These are the women who rush into relationships too fast, too soon. They meet a man and within weeks they're talking about marriage, kids, forever. Why? Because deep down, they're trying to outrun their past. They're trying to use commitment as a shield. They believe that if they can lock down one man, their history will disappear. But it never really does. Here's a story. A man named Victor started dating a woman who seemed sweet and caring. But he noticed something strange. She wanted to move at lightning speed. After only a few dates, she was already introducing him to her family, already talking about living together. Victor felt flattered at first. But as time went on, he realized what was really happening. She wasn't rushing because she loved him so deeply. She was rushing because she was tired of playing the field, tired of her past catching up with her. Commitment, for her, wasn't about love. It was about escape. As a man, you need to see these patterns clearly. A woman's relationship with commitment often reveals her history. If she avoids it completely or rushes into it recklessly, it's worth asking yourself, why? What is she running from? Or what is she chasing? And this is where Stoicism comes in. Because when you see these signs, you can't let emotion blind you. You can't let lust or fantasy cloud your vision. You have to look at the reality in front of you and stay calm. A Stoic man doesn't judge, but he also doesn't ignore. He sees the truth for what it is, and he makes decisions based on reason, not desperation. The third hidden sign is her attitude toward intimacy. For some women, intimacy is sacred, something reserved for a man she truly trusts. But for others, intimacy becomes casual, almost like a handshake, and the difference is clear if you know how to spot it. A woman who has been with many men often treats intimacy as something detached from emotion. She might be physically open, but emotionally closed. She'll give her body, but not her heart. She'll invite you into her bed, but not into her soul. And here's the key. Her energy doesn't lie. You can feel the difference between a woman who sees intimacy as a deep connection and one who sees it as routine. The former looks into your eyes. She lingers. She allows herself to be vulnerable. The latter is mechanical. She goes through the motions, but her spirit isn't present. There was a man named Elias. He once described dating a woman who seemed almost too comfortable with physical closeness too soon. At first, Elias thought he had struck gold. She was exciting, adventurous, uninhibited, but as weeks passed, he noticed something. There was no depth, no mystery, no real bonding. Everything was surface level, physical, and fleeting. Elias eventually realized this wasn't about him. It was about her past. She had treated intimacy casually for so long that it had lost its meaning. Here's the Stoic lesson. As a man, don't let this blind you. Many men mistake this kind of easy access for compatibility. They think she must really like me. But in reality, it could simply be habit. Don't confuse availability with value. If intimacy comes too fast and too empty, you should pause. Ask yourself, is she really giving me something precious, or is she repeating a pattern she's lived many times before? Now, let's move to the fourth hidden sign, her relationship with attention. Attention is a currency. Some women treat it as survival. And often women who have been with many men show a particular pattern. They crave male attention constantly. It shows up in little ways. The woman who can't put down her phone because she's always texting multiple guys. The woman who floods her social media with revealing pictures. Not just once in a while, but daily, seeking validation. The woman who gets restless if she's not being noticed, not being pursued, not being complimented. This craving doesn't come out of nowhere. It often comes from repetition. She has grown accustomed to male eyes on her, male voices in her ear, male hands reaching out. And when that attention fades, even for a moment, she feels empty. Let me tell you a story. Marcus was dating a woman who seemed vibrant and full of life, but he noticed something odd. She could never be satisfied with just him. If Marcus didn't text her every hour, she grew distant. If he didn't shower her with compliments, she became moody. Then he noticed her Instagram. Every post was a carefully posed picture, designed to attract likes and comments from men. At first, Marcus told himself it was harmless, but over time, he realized this wasn't just personality, this was a pattern shaped by years of attention from countless men. The Stoic man recognizes this for what it is. He doesn't demonize her. He doesn't attack her. But he also doesn't ignore it. Because a woman who is addicted to attention will never be satisfied with one man's devotion. She will always need more. And that need will eat away at the relationship. This leads us to the fifth hidden sign. How she speaks about her past. This one requires careful listening. Because many women reveal more than they realize, not through details, but through patterns in their storytelling. Here's what I mean. Some women will say, "Oh, I've had a few serious relationships," but the way they phrase it raises questions. Maybe she's vague. Maybe she glosses over years of her life with no explanation. Or maybe she jokes about her past too often, using humor to hide truth. One man I spoke to, let's call him Daniel, once dated a woman who always laughed off questions about her past. "Oh, I was wild back then," she'd say with a grin. "You don't want to know." At first, Daniel thought she was just being playful, but later he realized this was her way of concealing. Humor was the mask she wore to hide a history she didn't want to discuss. The Stoic man doesn't press for details. He doesn't interrogate. He simply observes. Because often, it's not what she says. It's how she avoids saying it. Vagueness, deflection, nervous laughter. These are signs. A woman who has had a modest past has nothing to hide. But a woman with a long history may dance around the truth. And here's the key lesson. Don't let curiosity trap you. Many men make the mistake of demanding details. They want numbers. They want timelines. They want confessions. But what happens when you get those details? They burn into your mind. They poison your peace. And you can't unhear them. The Stoic man takes a different path. He doesn't chase the past. He studies the present. He doesn't demand confessions. He observes behaviors. He knows that the truth reveals itself in actions, not in words. And when it does, he accepts it calmly, without anger, without desperation, but with clear eyes.
The sixth hidden sign, her circle of friends. There's a saying every man should memorize. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. This truth applies not just to men, but to women too. A woman's social circle is often a mirror of her lifestyle, her values, and her habits. If you want to know who she really is, look at the people she spends most of her time with. If her closest friends are women who constantly party, chase validation, and jump from man to man, then it's naive to assume she lives by a completely different code. People can act like outliers, but rarely do they stay immune to the environment they consistently immerse themselves in. Birds of a feather don't just flock together, they shape each other. Let's paint two different pictures. In the first picture, you meet a woman who appears conservative. She dresses modestly, speaks with restraint, and carries herself with elegance. But then you meet her best friends. They're wild, provocative, constantly sharing explicit stories about hookups, drinking every weekend and laughing about who's texting them at 2 a.m. At first, you might tell yourself, she's different. She's the calm one in the group. But here's the reality. If those are her closest allies, then she fits into that world more than you realize. She might not be the loudest in the pack, but she belongs to the pack nonetheless. In the second picture, you meet a woman whose closest friends are family-oriented, stable, and focused on personal growth. They gather for quiet dinners, support each other through challenges, and encourage meaningful relationships. Now, does this guarantee she's lived a modest past? No. But the chances are far higher because her circle reflects stability rather than chaos. There was a man named Joseph who once shared a story about a woman he dated. On their first few dates, she seemed composed, almost shy. But when Joseph met her friends, everything changed. They went to a rooftop bar together, and he watched as her friends flirted with every man in sight. By the end of the night, 2 of them had left with strangers. And his date? She didn't hold back. She joined right in. Joseph realized that the woman he thought was shy wasn't actually different from her friends. She was simply wearing a mask. Here's the Stoic perspective. Don't ignore the circle. Don't be so enchanted by her charm that you turn a blind eye to her tribe. Because no matter how much she insists she's different, The people she chooses to surround herself with reveal her standards. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." I would add, the soul also becomes dyed with the company it keeps. If she surrounds herself with women who live in constant pursuit of male attention, she is dyed by that energy. And that energy will eventually spill into her relationship with you. This doesn't mean you immediately discard her, but it does mean you observe carefully. A Stoic man doesn't jump to conclusions, but he doesn't bury his head in the sand either. He looks at the evidence, he weighs the patterns, and he makes decisions not from fantasy, but from reality. The seventh hidden sign, her attitude toward accountability. This final sign may be the most telling of all. Every person, man or woman, makes mistakes. Every person has chapters of their past that aren't perfect. But the crucial question is this: does she take responsibility for her choices, or does she hide behind excuses? A woman who has been with many men, but who has matured, will often acknowledge it openly. She'll say, "I made mistakes. I was careless. I learned from it." That kind of accountability is a sign of growth. But a woman who avoids accountability will speak differently. She will minimize, deflect, and rationalize. She'll call her wild past just fun, just experimenting, or just being young. She'll shift blame outward. Men pressured me. My ex was toxic. That stage of life doesn't count. The key isn't whether she had a past. The key is whether she has processed it with honesty. There was a man named Robert who dated a woman who admitted she had gone through a phase. At first, Robert respected her openness, but as they talked more, he noticed something strange. Every time he gently asked what she learned from that phase, her answer was always the same: "Nothing. I don't regret it." She laughed off questions, made light of the topic, and insisted that none of it mattered. For Robert, that was the red flag. Not her past itself, but her refusal to reflect on it. Contrast this with another woman. Let's call her Helena. She, too, had lived through a complicated past. But when she spoke of it, her tone was different. She said, "I was careless with myself. I confused validation for love. I hurt myself in the process. And now I know better." That is accountability. That is ownership. And that is the difference between a woman who has grown and a woman who refuses to face herself. The Stoic man values accountability above all, because accountability shows character. If she cannot own her past, how can she own her mistakes in the present? If she rewrites her history with excuses, how will she handle conflict with you? Epictetus once said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In relationships, the same applies. It's not about her past itself, but how she responds to it now. Her reaction, her level of ownership, tells you who she truly is. The Stoic Conclusion: choosing with clarity. Now that we've gone through all 7 hidden signs, let's step back and look at the bigger picture. A woman's past matters, not because you should obsess over it, but because it shapes her present. Her words, her relationship with commitment, her attitude toward intimacy, her craving for attention, her storytelling, her circle, and her accountability. All of these pieces create a portrait. But here's the Stoic truth: no single sign is absolute. A woman might display one sign without carrying the weight of all 7. Life is not black and white, but the more patterns you observe, the clearer the picture becomes. The mistake most men make is twofold. On one side, some men are blind. They ignore the signs, refuse to see the truth, and allow themselves to be carried away by lust or fantasy. They say, "It doesn't matter. Love will conquer all." But love without clarity is a trap. It binds you to an illusion, not reality. On the other side, some men become bitter. They see one sign, and they immediately condemn. They carry resentment toward all women, convinced that everyone is tainted. This too is a trap. Because bitterness blinds you just as much as naivete. The Stoic man chooses the middle path. He observes, he assesses, he stays calm. He doesn't demonize, but he doesn't deny. He doesn't shame, but he doesn't ignore. He accepts what is without fantasy, without resentment, without fear. Here's what you must remember. Your role is not to change her past. Your role is to protect your future. If her past has shaped her into someone who is accountable, stable, and ready for growth, then that is a woman you can respect, even if her history is complicated. But if her past has shaped her into someone who hides, deflects, and repeats old patterns, then you must guard yourself. Because relationships are not just about passion. They are about alignment. They are about values. They are about the kind of life you want to build. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Apply that wisdom here. You cannot change a woman's past. You cannot rewrite her history. But you can choose how you respond. You can choose whether you step forward with her or whether you step away to protect your peace. So let me leave you with this. The signs are always there. Learn to see them, learn to read them, and when you do, don't panic, don't argue, don't chase. Simply decide with calm, with strength, with clarity, because in the end, the mark of a Stoic man is not that he avoids pain, it's that he chooses wisely, so he doesn't create unnecessary pain for himself. Be that man.